there. Happy Monday to you. Welcome on in to Lunch with Claiborne and Joe, the Ameren, Illinois Lunch Show with Claiborne and Joe here on ClaibsOnline.com, powered by Gray Bar and driven by Munganast St. Louis Acura. I'm Joe Roderick, joined alongside by Mike Claiborne. Claibs, we got some hot stove stuff to talk about here on the show today. And well, after our meeting last week with Ameren, I mean, we might as well make Ameren the official hot stove sponsor of this, based on all of the things we learned about the gas leaks out there at the on site with Ameren, Illinois last week.
Yeah, that's a good point you make. So it kind of works hand in hand as far as hot stove this time of the year. And certainly the guys we had a chance to spend some time with last week and just kind of learn a little bit more about natural gas and all the other things that come with it. And you know, their Ameren is so safety conscious, and that's so important. But for us to see firsthand how it works, I feel a little bit better about my situation for sure. With regard to hot stove. With regard to hot stove, Cardinals announced they signed Lance Lynn to a deal. I'm not opposed to this. I think you need a rusty nail in this ball club, first of all. Second of all, he's an innings eater. He's got experience. And I think more importantly, if Lance is in reasonable shape, I think that's I think the conditioning issue is going to be what's up. And I know they'll have a physical for him and all that. But if Lance comes in shape, I think he could be a nice middle rotation guy for you. But more importantly, I think we need guys with a little bit more experience. As I said earlier, maybe a little bit more of a rusty nail impact.
Yeah, traded from the White Sox to the Dodgers last year. Of course, we all remember the 4 home runs that he gave up in the NLDS this past season. And a return back home, the former 2011 World Series winner here with St. Louis, Derek Gould, reporting that it's a 1-year deal with a club option currently worth guaranteed $11 million, could be up to $24 million if incentives and the club option are picked up next year for Lance Lynn, who I believe this year I think is 23 innings away from 1,000 innings in his career. I think, or well, unless he's well past that. No, that was the first 6 seasons. I'm sorry, with through about 1,000 innings with the Cardinals before. So the Cardinals lose out on Aaron Nola. They never were really in on Aaron Nola. I was going to say,
were they ever actually in it?
According, I guess they had brief conversations, but no actual numbers were exchanged in that. So Lance Lynn's not the big free agent move that they're going to make. Sonny Gray is reportedly the top target of the Braves. Where do you look next if Aaron Nola and Sonny Gray are off the list?
Well, you're not going to get Blake Snell. So those 3 are off the table. The Japanese pitcher that I know everybody's interested in, that's going to cost you a lot of money. But you know what? If I want to invest, I'd rather invest in a 25-year-old than some of the guys that are on the market right now. And you're going to probably have to make a trade. I mean, you're going to have to move some players anyway. So I don't have a problem with them moving a player or two in order to get a competent pitcher in here. But I'm going to go back to my original point about this whole thing. You can talk starting pitching all you want. If you don't have a bullpen to back it up, we're just wasting our time. So I need to hear about some names from the bullpen that the Cardinals are pursuing as well. I know Jordan Hicks's name has been kicked around a little bit. I'd like to have a little bit more experience in the bullpen, but you cannot make this investment in starting pitching and not shore up your bullpen. If you have Hicks, Helsley, and Romero, that's a really good start, but you're still going to need some more help in the bullpen.
Reynaldo Lopez went to the Braves earlier today from the Angels, the former relief pitcher for the Angels, I believe, ended last season with the Guardians. He signed a 3-year deal down in Atlanta for a heck of a lot of money. So Jordan Hicks is in for a pretty big payday for the numbers that he's put up in his career too. So if we're looking at 3 years, $48 million around there for a relief pitcher?
Oh, I don't know. That's a little on the high side as far as I'm concerned. But it's the market's going to go up because there aren't that many good ones out there. So you have that to take into account. But it's still early, but you can't wait too long either. Atlanta has always been an aggressive organization. I'm not really surprised by them doing this because they knew they needed some help. And my thing is, hey, don't be afraid to set the market if you have to. I know that's not been the Cardinal way of doing things, but I'm not sure if we've seen them in this predicament before. So they may have to do some things differently in order to really make themselves a viable candidate as far as the season is concerned.
Wouldn't you say, I mean, the Phillies have kind of already set the market with the re-signing of Aaron Nola? It feels like that was a big domino to fall, and it seems like all these other pitchers now are starting to fall in line. So we're seeing the arms going here still in November, which is really, really early compared to the last few years of free agency that we've seen.
It is, but I'm not sure Philly did set the market because this is kind of a hometown situation. I think the way you set the market is when somebody leaves and goes somewhere else. And I'm always of the belief you take the two deals, the highest deal and the worst deal, you throw those two out and you try and work toward the middle on what the market really stands for. So until we see one of the other guys move across the street and play for somebody else, I'm not sure if we have a real set of the market.
Rammer and I talked about this on Friday when we started looking at the offseason a little bit. It's really, really tough to guess on a potential trade as far as who's out there. We know the names that are wanting to be moved around. So if you had to guess or kind of look out there, is there somebody that's with another team right now that you'd really like the Cardinals to pursue in a trade?
I like Glasnow. We saw him in Pittsburgh. We saw him in Tampa. The injury situation has really been something that's set him back. To be honest with you, I think the guy we're looking for is someone we're not talking about. And he might be a number 2 guy in somebody's rotation. He might be a guy that's got 2 more years left on his contract. Or maybe he's a guy that's going to go into free agency. Maybe you're renting someone. When you look at that whole situation, you have to ask yourself, okay, what do we have in our organization? Who's going to be ready after next season that we can slide in? So the reason why I bring that up is because you have a couple of trains of thought. You either want a guy who you have control under for maybe 2 years, or you have a guy that you're basically renting to fill a gap because you think you have some help on the way. Because the salaries are going to change if you bring in some young players that you don't have to pay a lot. Or initially, you might want to rent a guy for 2 years and compared to sinking a ton of money into a 7-8 year deal, which I don't think the Cardinals will do because they'll feel like they have some other players that will be able to fill that void. So maybe they move on the short term. And there's going to be some short term guys out there. Now, I'll give you an example. A guy like Jack Flaherty, who the Cardinals probably won't bring back, he's going to probably have to take a short-term deal. Giolito may have to take a short-term deal. Do you like Dylan Cease enough to make a deal with the White Sox? I mean, there's some candidates out there.
Yeah, and as we wrap up the pitching discussion, we mentioned it earlier. So Yoshi Yamamoto, has officially been posted by the Oryx Buffaloes from Japan. So teams now have the 45-day window that ends on January 4th to look at making at some sort of negotiations with him. So that'll start tomorrow and go till January 4th. I mean, I know the Cardinals aren't in on it, or they probably are going to kick the tires a little bit. I don't know if the money.
They have to.
9 years, $225 million, kind of the estimated deal that he would get. You mentioned he's 25 years old. We know how close he is with Lars Nootbaar. A 9-year, $225 million deal for a guy like that. Is that something the Cardinals could pull off?
Boy, you know what? It's a good question. And the reason why I say that is when you think about the money, or they're going to be opt-outs in it, first of all. And I think that's something we all have to pay attention to. Or they're going to be opt-outs, or will you flip the script and say we have options too? We'll have buyouts after certain periods of time. $25 million for a starting pitcher is not out of the question. The length, that's a different story. But as you mentioned, and I did too, 25 years old. If I want to make an investment, I want to make an investment in this guy. So I think this is something the Cardinals might kick the tires on and go for. From where I sit. Now, granted, I haven't talked to Mo or anybody else, but it just kind of makes sense. You can make that investment, and I think, but you have to be careful where maybe both sides have opt-outs or buyouts every other year after, let's say, when he gets to 30.
Yeah.
And at that point,
like I said, I'm already pretty surprised by the amount of moves that we've seen this soon into the off season for baseball, knowing how long it seemed to take last year. And I don't know if that, some of the reasons from 2 years ago had to do with the lockout. I mean, that obviously played a big role in stuff, but it seemed like we were waiting well into the new year for some of these moves to take place. So seeing these go off the way they have, it's nice to see that stuff is starting to move a little bit.
Well, when you look at the other sports, Joe, we've talked about how the other teams, when free agency starts, they don't fool around.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're right. You look at NHL is the best example. We always look forward to July 1st because when free agency starts, the Blues are signing somebody. The NFL is the same way. The NBA does it the same way. Major League Baseball is the only one that waits through the holidays and beyond, looking to maybe get a better deal somewhere. But I don't think teams can fool around and do that this year. I think you better go get who you need and keep it moving. I think it creates a little bit more stability within an organization, and certainly for a player. You're going to have some agents that want to see how many other dance partners they can find so they can compete. But I really would look at players who really, if they have somewhere they really want to be, because they do their homework too as far as what teams have, they're going to say, hey, look, you know what, let's just get the deal done. Let's just get the deal done. That's where I want to be. Get me fair money, and we'll go from there.
Katie Wu also just reported Daniel Descalso has been added to the Cardinals coaching staff for next year. So another familiar face will be back here in St. Louis.
Yeah, that kind of got some legs late last week. I don't know what Double D's job is going to be. I think the Cardinals may restructure how they use coaches because we don't have as many as a lot of teams we face. And I think the Cardinals are trying to expand that a little bit. Now, the question is, do you have too many cooks in the kitchen? But I think Daniel Descalso would be ideal. I think you and I even talked about him early on as far as being on this staff as maybe a bench coach or a first base coach when there was an opening. I remember I thought he would have been a great first base coach. But we'll see what happens. You know what? When you're a versatile guy like him, he kind of reminds you of Brendan Donovan, or because he can do a lot of different things. So I'm anxious to see what happens, and I'm happy he's here.
We'll keep you up to date on all of the offseason news whenever it breaks and whenever we can here on Claibs Online over the next several months. Of course, Claibs will be down at the winter meetings in 2 weeks over in Nashville, and that's when we will find out if our friend Joe West has been voted into the Hall of Fame. Hall of Fame ballots came out today. Carlos Beltran, Matt Holliday, the only two former Cardinals on the list for next year. Adrian Beltre,
Let's go down that list.
Let me bring it up here as as we talk about it here. But I do know Adrian Beltre is probably the biggest lock on that, right?
I would think so. 3,000 hits. Just a phenomenal player. If he's not in the Hall of Fame, I don't know who should be.
Other notable candidates: Joe Mauer, Chase Utley, Jose Bautista. Omar Vizquel on there again.
Give me the whole list, and I'm just going to say yay or nay of the credible guys.
There's going to be some guys Joe Mauer. Okay,
he's close. He's close.
Chase Utley,
not yet.
Jose Bautista,
not yet.
Bartolo Colon,
nope.
Adrian Gonzalez?
Nope.
Matt Holliday?
Nope.
David Wright?
Nope.
Omar Vizquel?
Yep.
As far as notable names, that's all I got. I don't know who else.
What about Andrew Jones? Andrew Jones is on the list.
Oh, I think this is just first-year guys. Sorry. Yeah, Andrew
Okay.
Jones.
Right.
Yeah, sorry. I was just going through the first-year guys.
Okay.
Andrew Jones back on there. Andy Pettit on there. Manny Ramirez on there. Mark Burley.
Who's the first guy you just mentioned?
Andy
Let
Pettit.
me ask you. Beltran. Carlos Beltran.
I think so. How much of the Astro stuff hurts him for the Hall of Fame?
You know what? We moved on from that. I think that
he's the only guy. He's the only player that ever got punished for that.
Yeah, you're right.
Essentially.
But I guess in my dealings with him, he might have been one of the most professional, elegant athletes I've ever covered.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know the story. You know, he wrote Mo a nice letter of thanks after leaving St. Louis. And I remember Mo saying, I've only had that happen twice in all the time I've been in the business. I mean, this guy reeked. I mean, he walked in a room. He professionally commanded the room.
Yeah.
But he's a hell of a player.
Mm-hmm.
He's a hell of a player, 2-time All-Star with us. But if you look at his numbers, they're right up there in certain general conversation. He was a great switch hitter. I would certainly consider him, Andrew Jones. Those are two guys that would be right off the top that I would definitely consider.
Let me throw this name. What about Billy Wagner?
Billy Wagner should be in. Yeah.
So
I'm not sure if there's ever been a better left-handed reliever. I mean, this guy, he was throwing 98 plus.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and he wasn't a big guy, but he was put together. But yeah, Billy Wagner is probably a guy that, and I think we're going to era now, Joe, that relief pitchers are going to probably start getting more attention.
Yeah.
At least the Billy Wagners of the world. Now, some of these guys now who have fewer innings and will only pitch one inning and can't do it every day, and that's a whole different story. I mean, I look at a guy like Craig Kimbrell. He'll be a Hall of Famer at one point.
So as I look through this list again, is Adrian Beltre the only one that you would consider 100% lock, or do you think Andrew Jones gets in there this year too?
I would say he's a lock. I think Andrew Jones should be in because he was the best defender at his position when he played.
Yeah.
In his era.
We will take a break here on the Ameren, Illinois Lunch Show here on ClaibsOnline.com. We come back. We got Mizzou football to talk about as the number 9 ranked Tigers won again this weekend, and we will do so when we come back here on ClaibsOnline.com.
Let me get this straight. Graybar is a distributor?
Yep. For more than 150 years, we supported electrical and datacom projects all over the country.
So you can get me products wherever and whenever I need them?
Yep. Thanks to our expansive national logistics network.
For any industry?
Yep. From construction sites and industrial plants to schools, hospitals, and just about everything in between.
So you could say Graybar is much more than a distributor?
Yep, you could say that.
They really do it all.
Yep. When you need a hand powering, connecting, or maintaining your operations, join the thousands of professionals who rely on Graybar to help keep them up and running. Yep, Graybar does that.
Back here on the Ameren, Illinois Lunch Show with Claibs and Joe. And Claibs, if I need to take another break, let me know.
No, we're good.
Okay, we're all good. I thought that Graybar commercial would be long enough for us to get on here. Of course, we're powered each and every day by the folks over there at Graybar, also driven by Munganast St. Louis Acura here on the Ameren, Illinois Lunch Show. And Claibs, this past Saturday, I made a trip over to Columbia, Missouri. The first time that I've been to a Tigers game in 10 years. Took Hudson there with me, so his first experience in a college football environment. And we saw the number 9 ranked Mizzou Tigers defeat the Florida Gators with a last-second field goal by the thicker kicker, Harrison Mevis.
It was an odd game for a lot of different reasons. Missouri. Florida is a team, and we talked about the fact they made it interesting for Georgia for like 2 series. And I said to myself, they're not bad. They're just very young. But it was a good win, obviously, for Missouri. They have to close out against Arkansas. Mm-hmm. But, man, how does Luther Burden Jr., the third, catch a ball with 4th and 17? How's that happen?
That shows. That's one of those plays. I know I am by far a diehard Mizzou fan. I am a fair weather Mizzou fan, and I will admit as such, especially having, being here on the Illinois side and having zero attachment to Mizzou. But when they're good, I'll follow them. But you talk to any Mizzou fan, and that's a play that never has happened in their history.
No.
That's just one of those that just does not happen for Mizzou Tigers, and it went down for them there. But Luther Burden, I know he's a finalist for the Biletnikoff Award that was just announced today. How about the near catch that he made in the end zone? And that, just I know close doesn't cut it, but my goodness, the way that he moved, the way that he shifted his entire body to go and make the effort on that catch just shows what kind of special talent he is.
Yeah, he is. He's everything we hope for. And when this season is over, 10 years from now, we're going to look back on this particular team and how everything came together. They've avoided serious injury. The seniors have really stepped up. Everybody's bought into the system. The Cody Schrader story, the Brady Cook story, the Luther Burden story, the offensive line just really dominating people. There's so many good things about this. We don't know where it's going to end, but I can promise you this is going to be like those years when Gary Pinkel had the Chase Daniel crew and how much they did during that run, or going back to when Howard Richards played, when he was playing for Warren Powers and Al Frio, those guys, and how good they had their teams going in the right direction. But this team will have a trademark, a signature, because it says to everybody locally, it's okay to go to Mizzou because we're going to beat some people. And that's what's made this thing fun.
The officiating once again seemed to be just a little questionable in the game. A few missed face masks, very bad missed pass interference right in front of the official too, right in front of the guy on the sidelines. The play down there just completely missed the call on it. We've talked about it week in and week out. We're closing in now on these conference championship games and this Final Four. What does the NCAA have to do to improve the officiating in these big time games that are coming up?
Well, that's something I'm sure they're talking about. But here it'll be easier for this reason. There'll be fewer games every week, and you can put some good crews together. I think the challenge you'll see is when you have officials coming from one conference and working another conference, whether it's in a bowl game or something along that line, that can be a little tricky. But I think when you get to the conference championship games, those games will probably be better officiated because they'll pick the best crews that'll be out there. Wait a minute. They may be picking crews. They may take individuals. I have to look into that because I've seen it both ways. And I think that's really hard when you're not working with the same group of guys every week, but you were really good as a side judge or a back judge, So I'll look into that, and I'll have an answer for us next week.
Looking around the rest of college football, nothing else really in the top 10 was even close this weekend. But
wait a minute, losing that quarterback.
I was just going to say, that's where I was going with that, because I was going to say when the committee meets and they have to figure out, right now, Georgia's number 1, Ohio State and Michigan, they're 2 and 3. But when you look at what to do with that 4th spot, how much does Florida State losing their quarterback, how much does that hurt how you're going to see them being in the top 4 right now?
Well, I think it's going to hurt a lot. I think the other thing is this committee has to make some hard decisions on what is going to be best as far as display, who has the best following, who's going to give you good numbers TV-wise. And it may not be Florida State. It may not be Michigan. It may not, I think you have to look at it along that line. Do you want to be real heavy Big Ten and the SEC? You could easily have 2 SEC teams and 2 Big Ten teams in this thing.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of things that go into play with regard to who's going to be the most attractive participants. And I'm sure there's some people in this committee saying, man, we can't wait to expand this thing because it's gotten tougher. But here's the other thing. What happens if Ohio State knocks off Michigan?
That game's up in Michigan. Michigan right now 3.5-point favorites for
Yeah,
Saturday.
but I mean, with the cloud over Michigan's head, is that a good look? So I just think that this will come down to that final championship weekend, where the 4 teams you see now, 2 of them will not be there. So it's incumbent upon, and maybe 3 of them.
Yeah.
So Alabama will face Georgia in the championship game. What happens if Alabama knocks off Georgia?
Yeah. That's already set too. So we know what's on track for that one. The only other one, Oregon, they're number 6 right now. They're 10-1 on the year. They will host Oregon State this weekend. As you look through some of the other top 10 matchups of note this week, so the committee, the big question mark is just how much that Ohio State-Michigan game is going to matter this week, and then what kind of weight you're going to put on that conference championship game the following week for that, because whoever wins this goes to that. Are you going to say they're automatically in the top 4 because you can't go back on it? If Ohio State loses this game, they're either in the Final Four or they're not.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Like that.
Yeah. So if that's the case, then both are, regardless of what they do in those next 2 weeks.
Well, let's think about this for a minute. First of all, I don't even know who they would play on the other side of this thing. Whoever it is isn't going to be good enough to beat Ohio State. Right. But you never know. But having said that, I think this is going to get muddy.
Iowa's already clinched. Iowa's already clinched. So
well, this will be a boat race there because Iowa's
so whoever wins this weekend will play Iowa in the conference championship.
They're not that good, so I'm not worried about them. But I just think that the teams you see now, this could all be shaken up after this weekend, and certainly for the bowl championship. I mean, the conference championship games.
NFL this past week, you had a pretty good Thursday night game with Ravens and Bengals, but Joe Burrow, now he's out for the year. Another starting quarterback that's done for the season. Tonight, you have what could be the game of the year, at least on paper it is. It's Eagles, it's Chiefs, it's the defending Super Bowl, or rematch of the Super Bowl from last year, and a rare really just kind of ultimate game of the year that Monday Night Football gets. This is a nice win for ESPN to have this game tonight. As you know, Eagles Chiefs, I don't think we read anything into this regardless of what the outcome is, right?
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Why is it that the Chiefs, all the big games that take place, they all play them at home?
They played they played the big game. They had the one in New York against the Jets.
No, I'm talking about when we look at big matchups.
Yeah,
I just don't see the Chiefs moving out of Kansas City very often. And not that I have.
You think they got 12 home games?
No, it just seems like every big matchup.
Yeah.
But I will say this: this is the one game on the schedule, and I've not been very impressed with this year's play. This is one I'm going to seriously pay attention to tonight.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
because they're both rested. They both coming off the bye. Everybody should be good to go. They both were really good defensively. That Philadelphia bunch on both sides of the ball is as good as anybody you're going to see. And so you wonder with this extra time, how much do these teams defensively show a different look because they're going up against 2 premier quarterbacks also.
Also around from this past week, you had Deshaun Watson. He's out for the year now. Mentioned that. Mentioned Joe Burrow's done for the year. So just another quarterback that's done for the year. The Browns just quietly are 7-3 on the year. But I watched Red Zone yesterday. Still couldn't tell you who their quarterback is. What his full name is, I believe it's DRT is what they kept calling him yesterday.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of that game, and I found him to be an interesting player because he's versatile. He doesn't have a lot of reps, but I think he gives them a better option. And I think as he gets more comfortable, it's too bad Nick Chubb's not behind him because this bunch would really be good. But you know what? They're finding ways to win. And you know what? They're an outdoor team. Weather's going to start getting crappy, and they're going to probably be better suited for it anyway. Plus, they had one of the best defensive linemen in the game. So defensively, they're really good also. So I'm anxious to see how far they can go.
The other one too, seems like the 49ers, they're back too. After we talked about them starting to fall off a little bit, looks like they've found it again. I tell you, I mean, yeah, tonight might be the two best teams or the two teams that we're going to predict to be in the Super Bowl this year. But this might be one of the best years as far as having all these top teams up there to where you kind of look at it, but it wouldn't surprise you at all. I mean, you have Baltimore 8-3, Jacksonville 7-3, Miami 7-3 with what Tyreek Hill's doing. Their first wide receiver through 10 weeks to have 1,200 receiving yards in an NFL season. So you go there. I mentioned Browns 7-3, and then in the NFC side of things too, you got 4 teams with only 3 losses on that side too. So it is a very high, very, very top heavy league this year in the NFL.
Yeah, you're right. And you know what? If you look at the schedule, those final couple of weeks, there's some really good matchups going to be coming up. So I think for everybody now, you just have to find a way to stay healthy, protect the football. And if you can do those 2 things, you got a shot, unless you're the New York Jets or Giants. Yeah, I really feel sorry for their head coach. You know, he's been saddled with a guy who just can't get it done, and he's lost the confidence of his teammates. Defensively, they're still a pretty good team. But, man, you know, what has he gone, 40-plus drives without a touchdown?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's unheard of. So that's an unfortunate situation. The Giants is just a disaster. You know, they paid all that money to Jones. He gets hurt. Barkley's just a guy. Their defense is tried, but they've had a lot of injuries there. And there's some bad teams out there right now. There's some really bad teams. But you're right. This league is real top-heavy right now, and it'll be fun to watch them down the stretch.
Do you see who is going to be the quarterback next week for the Jets?
I have not heard. I know that he was non-committed.
Tim Boyle.
Okay. Other than the Boyle family and his alma mater, there's not many people who know him, I would say.
No. That's we talked about this last week too.
Yeah.
Just the names that are out there I couldn't tell you a Saturday that I sat watching college football in the past few years where I heard there's a touchdown pass from Tim Boyle.
I've never seen it happen.
No. And that's where we are. I mean, you would think the top league, the NFL, you would think would have guys that we heard of before as the quarterbacks.
I'm just surprised that we haven't seen more quarterbacks out of the Power 5 schools doing this job as a backup. And you know, because you would think they've been on a bigger stage. You know, a lot of these programs have a pro offense. You would think that they would be more involved, but they're not. And I don't know why that is. Another good
Is it the systems? I mean, are they just running systems that they know will win at the college level and they don't care about the development of these kids?
You know, I think it's a combination of things. Guys who are quick learners, I think they look for, first of all, guys who don't need a lot of reps in practice. Guys who are probably good subs where they can command the room knowing that they may not play. They're coachable is basically what I'm saying. But I don't know where they're getting these guys from.
No.
And from the looks of things, they probably ought to send them back.
Yeah.
Because they're not as good as they need to be. I mean, you look at Brock Purdy. Purdy's in the most ideal situation any quarterback can be in the league. Good defense, short drives, good runner, good receivers, good offensive line. I think if Brock Purdy was in New York playing for the Jets, he wouldn't have a job.
No, it's just the right situation and a guy that, has it figured out in a good system. You have a good offensive-minded head coach, too, in Kyle Shanahan that's put him in there. I don't think we've really seen Brock Purdy take many risks still in year 2. He's not out there slinging it around. When you have Christian McCaffrey out of the backfield, you have a nice little safety net, too.
He got a little sloppy last week. He made some ill-advised throws. But I'm sure he made a lot of other good plays also. But when it's all said and done, he's an interesting guy that's in an ideal situation.
We will take our final break here on the Ameren, Illinois Lunch Show. More football talk coming up later this week. Huddle up with Howard Richards. I believe. Are you guys planning on doing a show this week for Thanksgiving? Or
it is my mission to do it on Wednesday because he's leaving on Thursday to go to Arkansas.
Yeah, so we will see if we can get that done this week here on Claibs Online. Back after this.
There's always been a bright side to living in downstate Illinois. Ameren, Illinois is making it even brighter with a little help from the sun. Right now, we're building a next-generation solar facility to bring you cleaner energy for generations to come. It's good for the environment, your neighborhood, and everyone living in downstate Illinois. That's brighter thinking. That's energy at work. Learn how you can participate in solar programs at amerenillinois.com/renewables.
Back here for a few more minutes on the Ameren, Illinois Lunch Show with Claibs and Joe. Claibs, this past weekend over in St. Louis, the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame inducted a few new members into a class that you entered a few years ago, and saw your friend Bernie Miklasz got inducted. I got to say, I was surprised that he wasn't in there already.
Well, you know what? I got back in time yesterday to just go to that luncheon just to support him. Bernie and I had a really good visit yesterday, just catching up. And you're right, he should have been in well before now. He's been a mainstay in our sports community for a number of years. But there's some other guys. I was happy for Jay Delsing. He got in. Todd Light, I hadn't seen Todd in a couple of years. It was good to have him back in town, and Barrett Jackman. I mean, it was a really good class. And I commend the Missouri Hall of Fame. They do a really good job with this thing. They take it around the state. It's well organized, very thought out. And they had a very good crowd. They had over 700 people there yesterday. So it was a good time. By the way, did the Formula One thing Saturday night.
Oh, you did?
I could dig that even more. That's some cool stuff. Although what's killing the circuit is you have the same guy winning every week. It's almost like back in the day when Jeff Gordon kept winning on the NASCAR circuit. All people just they grew up to dislike him because he was winning too much. They got to figure this out. I mean, he's a good racer. I'm not going to take anything away from him. And all those other guys can't be that bad. It may be an equipment issue. But I'll tell you one thing. Michael Andretti's putting a team together, and General Motors is building the car for him, the engines for him. That's going to be very, very intriguing as far as the auto manufacturers are concerned, and what Michael Andretti and his name and reputation can do for the Formula One circuit.
Let me ask you, I got two questions. First one should be a quick one. How cool is the Sphere to see in person?
It's everything. You know what? I've never seen anything like it. I'm told that there may be one being assembled in Dubai here down the road, but it's fascinating. And as it was explained to me, you know, these artists who appear, there's no speakers on stage. I mean, it's such a unique experience, and you can't miss it. Yeah. That's for sure. You cannot miss that thing, man. It's like flying over St. Louis and seeing the Arch.
Yeah.
I mean, it's truly a staple of what Las Vegas is all about.
So I saw that I saw a few different write-ups about the Formula One this weekend, just it being kind of a mess for people going to Vegas, not for Formula One. From past Vegas experiences to this one, how different was it for you?
Well, you know what? Because it was spread out, the course, and it was very expensive, but the prices came down at the end because, you know, Vegas, while it's not for the poor, they will draw a line in the sand about what's too much. And I'm not saying that they lost money on it, but I think they had to rethink their pricing. You know, Miami and Austin have gotten away with it. I'm not sure if it can hold the same value that we saw in Miami and in Austin, Texas, but they'll get another crack at it. So we'll see. But it was a different setup because you had a real heavy influx of non-Americans that were there because, you know, this Formula One, these people follow this thing all over the world. And now that it's really kind of have a foothold in the United States, you're going to have a lot more people embrace it. You don't need a reason not to go to Vegas. So, you know, that comes into play. So overall, I think it was a good idea. I think because they couldn't practice the way they wanted to, and, you know, road courses it's a lot different than doing a hot lap around an oval. So there was a lot of things that came into play that I think they probably learned from, and they'll be better for it next time.
Blues broke a 2-game losing streak last night to Anaheim, winning that one 3-1. In games you've seen so far this year, have you been able to figure out the Blues yet?
Nope. This is a team that's not committed. When certain guys skate, this team can be okay. When they don't skate, they start getting sloppy in their own end. You're going to see games like we saw earlier in the week when they gave up 5 goals in back-to-back nights. Yeah. They still need to be a little bit more physically committed. They need to be a little bit better in their own end defensively. And they need to shoot the puck more. But they need to go to the net harder, too. And that's the one thing I've been complaining about. They don't have enough guys. They want to try and score on the perimeter. I think you have to go to the net harder. You have to draw a penalty from time to time. And once they make that commitment, they could be an interesting team to watch. I think the coaching staff has done a remarkable job because they don't really have as much talent as you think. Mm-hmm. Like last night, you have a first-round draft choice. So this is his, third year now? Playing on the fourth line? Yeah. What's up with that? Jake Neighbors is a fourth-line forward? That doesn't work. The Blues aren't that deep. So you have to figure out how they're developing players because I don't think they're heavy talent-wise. But you know what? This is what they've dealt with. They don't have any flexibility cap-wise, so they're going to have to roll with what they have.
We will wrap up the show today. Hey, just want to remind people that this Christmas season, you can take your unwrapped toys out to either Munganast Alton Toyota or Munganast St. Louis Acura. They are doing their annual Toys for Tots drive, Claibs, as we saw the boxes all sitting up there just 2 weeks ago when we were there. If you go and you drop off that new toy, you'll receive $20 off of your service there as well. They've also created an Amazon wish list, so you can go and buy some of the toys that the Toys for Tot folks are looking for. If you go visit Munganast St. Louis Acura, Munganast Alton Toyota on Facebook, just type in the name, and it's right there to help them out this holiday season with Toys for Tots at Munganast St. Louis Acura. And Claibs, I believe here in a few weeks, will be at the Alton location hanging out with Jamie over there in Alton, Illinois.
Can't wait to see.
Outside of that, have a very good Thanksgiving, and
do the same.
We'll catch up again next week. To all of our listeners out there, he is Mike Claiborne. I'm Joe Roderick. This has been another edition of the Ameren, Illinois Lunch Show with Claibs and Joe, powered by Gray Bar and driven by Munganast St. Louis Acura right here. ClaibsOnline.com.
Are you ready for a challenging and rewarding career? There are quality jobs in the construction industry.
I got out of college and my career choices were very limited, and this provided me with a plan for the present and the future at the same time.
I actually have a bachelor's degree in psychology, and I was making less than I make as a first-year apprentice painter.
I didn't go to college. I have no college debt. I make more money than the majority of people I know that went to college.
Take your first step towards a rewarding career. Visit stlouispdf.org.